Hello everyone, and welcome to my very first video in a series called The Wicso of A Vanzig Planet. This fantasy map of mine has been years in the making, and I really wanted to get this out to you guys, cause yeah. Anyways, since this is my first video, don't expect it to be polished or anything. I don't even have a script. I don't have this intro written down. Printed down. Oh my god, I am so bad at speaking. And that's it. Now, before I begin, I want to say that this is not capital or support and A Vanzig Planet. This is simply an experiment, one which I'm making for fun and to make sure the real support series, aka History of A Vanzig Planet, is as good as it can be. Thanks for listening to me yap, and now sit back, relax, and enjoy my silly little Wicso thingy. Oh yeah, also inspired by Hattis Bro, cause anyways, before we can start, I need to lore drop some things, you guys. So basically, Sabor is it's basically a planet in the middle of the universe, and it's in a magical galaxy, yada yada yada. I'm gonna skip to the actually important Wicso part. Basically, the people of this magical galaxy called the Vanzigs basically settle here, and the first country, Waisalu. Now, before this country is actually founded, uh, all the Vanzig peoples basically they just spread all across this planet, like, everywhere. So yeah, there's Vanzigs here, here, basically everywhere there's people. But this is the first country to be found around like 1,000 years after Vanzig people settled. If you're wondering, Vanzig people basically used to live in anarchy, despite being like space explorers. So yeah, most of the world is like in semi-anarchy. There's still laws and judges. Like if you do something bad, like kill people, of course you're gonna get sent to the nearest judge, judged for your crimes, jailed, yada yada yada. So yeah, it's basically like anarchy with laws and stuff. Yeah, this is like the first real country. So yeah, this is Baisalu, the first country in the world, or in the world of Singapore, that is. And basically it's ruled by like multiple presidents. There's like five ruling this thing. And also, yes, democracy. So yeah, being the first country, they will have you know, they will be able to prosper for a really long time. Like about 50 years, they're the only country on Sabor, and they just expand, and prosper and all that stuff. So yeah, for 40 whole years, Rusuni is the only country on Sabor, and it's prosperous. Like it prospers, it's very wealthy. A lot of people live here. But then we see the creation of a new country, that being all the way down here in Rasuni. Um, Basically, these guys just come out of nowhere, They hear that there's a country up here, and they're like, "Yo, I like that. I like the concept of civilization," and they just make a country here. They're in a really like, popular area. Despite the world support being in anarchy, semi-anarchy again, uh, there are like major cities where people live. There are laws. Basically, these cities are sort of like mini governments. There's police and all that stuff here. This is where judges are at, all that stuff. So yeah, it's like uh, the world right now is either like small city states or just anarchy. But peaceful anarchy. Not all the people are bad. So yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah. Basically, with another country showing up, Brazil is like they don't know how to react. Another country down here that's that's cool. interesting, but I don't really care. So yeah, our student will basically expand around this lake, uh, taking over this little area and taking over this city. Um, yeah. So for now we don't see much aside from Wicso expanding, taking over this island. So yeah, now that there's like two civilizations, more people are beginning to like concept of civilization, and thus more civilizations begin popping up, such as down here in what is your name? Juanito. If you're wondering, these nations are gonna be called like after the cities, And we see our fourth nation form in Arusinu. Okay, oh my god. And we see our fourth nation form all the way here in Arusinu. Well, they form around this lake at first, but of course then they like take this major city and well, yeah, then they become, Arusinu. So yeah, beautiful, colorful cast of countries. But anyways, with with more nations like spreading out, like Arsenu, Juanito, Sunni, all these guys coming literally out of nowhere. Wicso is basically going to be like, okay, we gotta expand so that we can still prosper, be the most prosperous. Basically, they want to be the strongest of all these guys for no reason other than pride. So yeah, basically they just begin mass expansion, down south here, taking over all this, meeting up with this river and stuff. So yeah, basically the people of Wicso, they don't care. Presidents, they wanna be like, they want to be big and important and all that stuff. But the people don't really care. They can do whatever, presidents, as long as they are letting them live their lives. People always are okay with anything. So yeah, basically, Wicso continues expanding east towards this major city, and yeah, by this point, they aren't like unstable, but people are beginning to see a bit of a drop in quality of life, and yeah, because of that, presidents are basically going to have like stop all this mass expansion stuff, as they basically just choose to consolidate around this area and expand later. Let me just draw this in. There we go. Alright. Now Paunita will take their turn at expansion, taking over this northern area, and just, expanding. They expand along this river, though it's not really that useful. And then they just expand this way. By the way, I should mention that Vanzigs, they aren't like humans, they are, they're like aliens. Just want to mention that. So yeah, they expand down south, wanting to meet up with Ursuni, to maybe become friendly and all this stuff. And Ursuni will basically like do the same. Like as they are about to reach this major city, a new country basically just pops up in this place. Being Ramyandu. They have like no beef with these guys, just they came out of nowhere, and not the best time. But it's okay, these guys are like, it's fine. So yeah, basically, these three become really friendly, and you know, Gonzalez are sort of starting to see that they basically like think they're plotting against them, but like in reality they aren't doing anything. Uh, so yeah, then we have Aracino basically expanding up north, you know, to become a really, prosperous country. At this time, the eastern area of Vanzigord was really rich. By the way, Vanzigord is like the area around this bay, like all of this over here is Vanzigord, all of this and all this. Yeah, so basically this is Vanzigord, and basically they have become the most prosperous, most rich and stuff. Why? For no reason really. Um, they just manage their economy really well. You know, uh, and plus, and I also helped that they are actually the third Polish nation. Like they actually formed before Finito. I want to mention that. So yeah, at this point we basically have Maizalo being like, their president's basically become like insane. It's been like 140 years of them ruling Maizalo. They're like, going insane. The people don't really see that though. The people don't really see that the presidents are insane until the presidents do this. So yeah, they basically just invade Toledo for no reason. They basically like take people from this major city and put them up here. This is like the first like battle. Now armies and wars aren't like a new thing, but for Vanzix, battles have mostly been in space. There are space civilization. But this is like the first real war on ground in like a really long time. Like, the Danzig homeland, let's just say this is their homeland. It had a lot of different countries that, fought and stuff, but that's been like eons ago, like millions, if not a billion years ago. But yeah, um, so yeah, this is really like, you know, a lot of people don't know how to react, but most reactions are, not positive. And so at this point, I would see like minor not rebellions, I mean protests, and Vaisal basically saying, stop the invasion of Fumanito, they didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, by this point, Rasuni, who is the second strongest, is still gonna be like, yo, get out of Fumanito, stop being an evil imperialist, and we won't have to fight. And the presidents of Waisal are basically like, no, you shut up, we're going to invade this country, we don't care. So yeah, basically, uh, forces reach the capital, and they meet their first real army, and they manage to like take over the capital. I mean, come on, you're being invaded, you don't have an army, you just raised your first army and like, got demolished. So yeah, not really that good. Right now, Fornito is basically relying on guerrilla fighters, to stop Izalu and Usui basically Usui's gonna send their military through Ramiandu and they're gonna like fight Izalu. But yeah, basically they managed to capture all this land here. Then they meet up with these mountains and of course guerrilla fighters, Um, yeah, the guerrilla fighters do a really good job holding off Izalu. But, then they make an invasion of this island and completely take it over. And then they make a landing here. Now, Faisal is basically debating to invade these guys. I mean, Syrian troops are about here. They still haven't entered. They're gonna need to ask the presidents of this country for permission. Like they are, well, they basically set up around here. The supply camp. If they need to like invade, have the supply camp and everything, so they'll be able to. Yeah. Basically, the presidents of Israel are basically like, yes, but in secret. Basically, Faisal doesn't find out about this until like the group reaches about here. Then their spies hear it, and then basically they invade into the country, and they basically fight with the military of Rossini. Now, Ramiandu, seeing that they've just been invaded for no reason, is basically gonna be like, hell no, they're gonna raise a military too, so these guys are basically gonna get pushed out. Um, Basically they get pushed back all the way to their place where they are landed. Their supply camps are taken, and yeah, basically this is a really bad blow for Waisalu, who like begin to see major rebellions. Yeah, we see Vanito make a pushback here, taking back their capital. Yeah, basically, Faisal is kicked out and the government is overthrown and yada yada yada. Basically, a peace treaty is drafted where Faisal basically gives up some land as like a sorry. And Benito's like fine with it. But yeah, so yeah, these three, seeing that Faisal cannot be trusted, are basically going to be forming the world's first alliance. That being basically the Anti-Faisal Defense Pact. I know, really cool name. But it's gonna be represented by the three-point star. Basically, all three of these guys join it. And now the age of militarism, now that Faisal has begun militarizing, so you have these guys, and basically everyone like militarized. War basically becomes normalized, and we're gonna see a lot of wars happen. But before that, we actually see something really interesting happen. Basically, over here in the east, we see the country of Sioux pop up. Now, these guys are basically like people from Funito who just migrated, during the war. These guys invaded and they were like scared around these areas, front line. They just basically fled here, went through these mountains, and they basically settled here. So yeah, Sioux basically is like a lone wolf in this area. There's not a single country here, so they are able to prosper. They're like the first real big naval power of the world. Um, Despite Faisal and Farmito, controlling these two islands, Sioux was the really, they were the first country to really like invest in their navy. Basically set up an overseas territory in Ashkal and Ugansal. Basically, they become a really strong country here, with their really strong overseas territory and stuff. Yeah, they basically make a lot of money from like trade, basically this area, like, these areas here, they trade a lot with these areas here, Pachakan, Masukus, and Mabusiana, all these cities. So yeah, basically they use, water to navigate. And yeah, basically, when they navigate, they have to pay tribute to Zoo, which greatly boosts their economy. Basically this is like the first couple of years. They basically think, Moisalo has won the war, Faunito is part of them, and Moisalo is not, Moisalo is now going to go after these guys down south. and Wicso, and they're gonna go after Sue. So basically, their plan is to expand and then fight Poisal. But after a bit, they realize, oh, Poisal is dead. People are kind of like, should we just go back? But everyone's like, nah. So yeah, everyone will stay here. Anyways, basically, we have a lot of nations forming up here, such as this northern country, which I will not give them a name. I don't care. Basically, they are probably the biggest country right now. Yeah, probably. And we also have this country down here. Now, they are not around a major city, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, we see Rasuni like basically just, I don't know, explode as they like make a massive expansion out east. They have become a really good and strong rival of Waisalu. And basically, Rusuni's plan is to get this country to join the Triple Star Alliance or the Waisalu Defense Pact, anti-Waisalu Defense Pact, so they can basically access the coast, have a navy and stuff. Yeah, this country's like, no. So yeah, that really pisses these guys off, like, a lot. So they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna invade you if you don't do it. And it's basically like, an ultimatum. And we're like, okay, go ahead. So yeah, after a bit more expansion by Rasuni and her allies over here, Rasuni will basically invade. They send their army up here and invade these blue guys. Now, before Rasuni can actually make it too deep, Waisalu will actually invade Faunito again. If you don't remember, I said that war basically got normalized and that the people basically like, okay, yeah, war is okay, I guess. And yeah, basically Faunito gets invaded. Waisalu has spent a lot of money on their military, and it really pays off when they make it really, really deep to Faunito. They take this island and, they make a plan for a massive push into Ramyandu and then Rasuni. Once they, push to Ramyandu, Rasuni will have to fight them and, fighting both these guys and these guys at the same time is gonna be really tough. So basically, Rasuni's strategy is to just knock this country out as fast as possible. They basically occupy all this area over here in the east, and basically just make a giant push towards the center of the country. Now this country's military is basically non-existent. As you can see, Rusuni has basically taken over most of this country. But then, out of nowhere, Rusuni will make a landing here and basically just occupy this area. As they begin making a push out here. Now, basically, Waisalu wants to secure this area. They've basically been inspired by what Sue is doing, with the Navy and stuff. And their plan is basically to do just that. So yeah, basically, they make a giant push here. And, they just make a giant push into Ramyandu, will, lose their capital and basically surrenders. But luckily for Rasuni, they managed to basically just push these guys out. Now this is basically a 1v1 versus Rasuni and Waisalu. So, they are going to make they're going to basically just make a giant push here, hoping to restore Ramyandu and have their military, help out and stuff. Now, all of this is happening. This country up north will basically make a small landing here. That's basically join the war against Vaisalu. They don't do much, and they agree with Vaisalu that, Vaisalu will give them a bit of land and water. They just like get out. So yeah, they stop being in the war. But Vaisalu continues making a push, to continue attacking Rasuni, yes, Rasuni. They continue attacking Rasuni and basically reinvade into Ramiandu. As Rasuni is getting really desperate. But luckily for them, a new country is about to join the war, and if I didn't make it obvious already, it's Arunisu. Oh, they don't occupy that. They occupy this. They occupy basically this whole island, make a landing really close to the capital. Which basically scares the president of Vaisalu, who basically just flee to this major city. So yeah, the capital is captured, but within a couple of days it's recaptured. Though, Arunisu makes many more landings. Make a landing here, here. They also make another landing in this island and in this area, liberating Faunito. So yeah, basically Waisalu is not having the best time as they get pushed fully out of Ramiandu and kicked out of Faunito, and with that this country joins the war again. Waisalu's capital is captured again, and then Arisa just makes a giant spearhead towards this capital, this city, and yeah, Waisalu basically surrenders. So yeah, let's take a look at this minor peace treaty. So as you can see, this is the peace treaty. The Sunni basically expanded up north here, gaining this area, and now looks really weird. Waisalu basically got like screwed over. Bernice also got a piece of this country and a piece of Waisalu. This country got, what was promised to them. So they found Ito, they got this area, which is nice for them. They didn't participate, so they didn't get anything. Womp womp. But yeah, now we see, basically, we see, Ursuni basically becomes really dominant. All these guys basically expand a lot into this northern area. Arunisa gets really rich off of controlling this area. Basically, if you want to trade, if you want to buy stuff from here or sell stuff to this area, you basically have to go up here, go through this, which is all controlled by Arunisu, and then land in this major port city, or in this river area. There's also a small port here. Or if you want to trade in this area, by Salu, you also go the same route, go over here, go through this area, or through this area, I'll click Arunisu. So yeah, with all this wealth, Arunisu basically, they also made this country for no reason other than they want to profit. They have a lot of natural resources and stuff, and yeah, basically they take most of them over, and they leave these guys as a vassal in this area. So yeah, these guys got kind of screwed over, but yeah, Arunisu is becoming really strong, and Rasuni, Aizalu, Funito, and Ramiandu, and basically all these guys do not like that. So yeah, basically, what we see is basically these guys trying to put aside their differences to invade Arunisu. Aizalu basically invades this area, taking over all of this, and they push up north here, hoping to take, some of this on land. Now, Aranisu was definitely not expecting this. Basically, what happened was Wicso invaded first, and they were like, okay, we can deal with that. But then Sunni invaded. Now Sunni, they used to be number 1 after Wicso got kicked in the butt, but now they're number 2, and basically they want to be number 1 again. So yeah, take over this lake and push really close to the capital. And yeah, this country basically rebels. It's like, okay, we'll give you some land if you like promise to like get me on land back. And Maza's like, okay, sure. Basically they say we'll give you some land if you agree to give us most of our land back. Maza's like, sure, why not? So yeah, Maza basically takes all of this land, and this country gains they gain their land back. Yippee, happy for them. Good job. Anyways, during this war, what is out does also expand. Basically, Ernie's just like, okay, fine, we give up. Let's have a peace treaty. These two didn't really do anything about this in this war. So yeah, they get nothing but Faisalu and Arasuni. They get a lot of land from this. Basically, this area here is given to Faisalu. All this area down here is given to Rasuni. Now you might see that right now there are only like 3 major powers, that being Maizalu, Rasuni, and Su, who has finally like begun, reopening up to the world. They stopped being so isolated and stuff, and yeah, basically Su is kind of like, the safe haven from all this area here. Basically, most of the people in, Vanzigard, if you don't remember, Vanzigard is like all of this over here. Basically, most of the people in Zoo are like calling, they're saying that they're the safe haven from the chaos of Vanzigard. Anyways, we see Zoo basically like, call upon a lot of people from the Vanzigardian areas come here, and they're like, bet. So we see Cyana form. I know, really short name. Who cares? Yeah, basically they center a bit around the city of Angopoli. They are basically like the bridge between these two areas, And, they're basically the bridge between Zoo and, Vanzigard. Yeah, they get a lot of money from that. Another country that just shows up out of nowhere is not just called Durakun. So yeah, Durakun forms, and last but not least, we have a small country here. I don't think we need to really know their name. They aren't really that important, are they? Okay, just kidding. Their name is Bordercross. Someone is definitely smiling right now. Basically, she was like, yo, I'm being surrounded. Jack and we like, stop this. Okay, don't say that, but I'm like, okay, can you like not from another country here? And then another country here forms. Be an ad. At this point, it was like, okay, hell no. Hell no, what's next? What's next? Another country that's gonna block me up from the whole northern area. And yeah, we basically see a country called Agraform. Way up here, looking over this mountain stuff. They aren't like that big. They're pretty small. They don't have major cities. This is like it. So they're like, okay, nah, I'm done. Basically, they just invade Agra. They make a big push into here. And then everyone's like, yeah, should we just invade these guys? And I was like, heck yeah. First off, Warcross invades this area and makes landing in Nisan. And since they're military over here, capture this area. Then Fianad will basically advance towards Azkajal. Then you have Sayana and Durakun basically just, rushing for the capital. It's like it's one of the richest cities in the world. But like, before they can even get close to the capital, Agra manages to make a surprisingly strong pushback. Basically, they have a really good general who just, manages to destroy all the zoo. So yeah, let's take a look at this peace treaty. Anyways, after Zoo basically falls apart and is absorbed into Agra, we have Bordercross, Fianad, and, Durakun becoming really strong. Bordercross expands. Also, they kind of invaded Bengali, but there's like no information about this war. Cause basically, a big fire started in Fortis, the capital of Bordercross, but basically like destroyed all records of this war. Sienna was basically like, no, we're not gonna keep that, we don't want to be embarrassed. So yeah, that's basically what happens. But now comes the real interesting part. Down south here, we have a country by the name of Yunpria showing up. Yunpria is different. It used to be just like all other countries. It had 3 presidents, because of democracy, and, all that stuff. But, basically, what happened to them was that, basically, their presidents had a really big disagreement, like, very bad disagreements. It got so close, almost began the first civil war in history of civil war. But, thankfully, the presidents were like, okay, who cares? Let's just like give power to one person. What can go wrong? Anyways, during this time, we have these guys over here, the Taritsu forming. Basically, they're just like they're like really strong, semi-nomadic. Basically, they just expand a ton. They expand all the way over here to the east, probably becoming like the strongest country on the planet. Of course, they aren't really a country, as you can see by their borders. A lot of the history about them, that was weird. A lot of the history about the Turutsu was, you know, basically, that they were nomadic and stuff. Their borders were never really like that important. Down here, we basically have the Wuhtinu forming. They are also semi-nomadic, but not, they just sort of settled here and they became like a really strong country, I mean, a lot of overseas territories. They basically modeled themselves after Zoo, who, once Spider-Man collapsed, but was still like really strong. Anyways, Yunpria basically expands, becoming really strong. Now, despite all these countries being close to brilliance and how well they're doing, the king, none of them adopt, monarchy. Like, I like Wuhtinu, still a democracy. Same with the Tirutsu. But yeah, basically it's like the Imperial Kingdom's like, let's invade Wuhtinu. Yeah, basically they make a large offensive into here, taking over this island. Yeah, basically like, yo, give this to us and we'll leave it alone. So like, no. And then these guys basically launch invasion of this area. The king has basically been militarizing Yunpria for a really long time. So yeah, Yunpria has one of the best militaries in the world. And yeah, basically, we see this country just completely fall over, and they basically surrender to Yunpria, who basically just annexes them whole, which is insane. First country to really like be annexed whole, like be split up. Like these guys were split up between Arusinu and this guy. The closest that the thing has ever come to like, being fully just annexed is when Arusinu invaded this country, and that seems like very small, in the east, in the west, or something like this. Anyways, Yunpria is basically on steroids. Anyways, during all this, some people from the restore basically like, we don't want to be the Wicso, and found Bruntus. I know, really cool name, wow. Anyways, these guys are like #1 haters of these guys. These guys like, don't care. Their problem right now is Yunpria was like super strong, and basically they like began encroaching on dudes too, and they are like, yo, what the hell? Don't do that. Don't encroach on my territory, dude. Like, okay. But yeah, basically. Anyways, quick break from Yunpria. Up here we basically see Sienna, like, form themselves an empire, trademark. Autocross, they are basically making a lot of money. People from like Wicso and yunpria, if they wanna like trade with the northern Vanzig Guardian countries, all these guys over here, they basically have to go through Autocross, so they are basically like a second Arunisu. Except, less countries wanna invade them. So yeah. Anyways, back to Yunpria. We have Bruntus launching an invasion of these guys. They basically take over all of this land in the east, but then, a lot of the people, they just overthrow the government and basically proclaim that they're, part of the roots too. Basically, like, these guys send them spies and, corrupt government officials into here, and yeah, now Brutus is basically just part of these guys. Yunpria makes some really good progress in this front line. Yeah, basically Yunpria makes a really good push in, and they demand all of this here. Like literally all of this. All the way up to the city of Chronia, and these guys are like, are you insane? But in the end they have to accept it, and yeah, who cares? Anyways, Yunpria has really formed an. Basically, they just like expand all the way up north. And now all these guys are seeing, they now hear about Yunpria and they're like, holy shit. They hear about Yunpria and they're like, oh my god. And yeah, the first victim of Yunpria is, of Yunpria. God damn it, switch between the names. Yunpria is Vianad. They had them captured and they are fully annexed. And then yeah, Yunpria just basically over the next decades, we see Yunpria invade a lot of nations such as Torakun, to basically have a large coalition against them, run across with their money, basically just pushes into here, all the way down here, and they also invade this area, along with Agra and Sienna. They get pushed back, and yeah, Yunpria just completely annexes them. Basically, Yunpria rises like super fast. Like, The king has basically learned of this thing called nationalism, and basically he's using it to its fullest advantage, as he basically expands Yunpria all the way over here, all the way to these mountains, and yeah, basically at this point I was like, holy crap, we're cooked. Agra gets an X, Siena gets an X, and yeah, basically we see like the first, first like major war against Yunpria in a long time. Most of the wars have just been, small countries trying to stand up to the, like, behemoth. But yeah, basically, now we actually have, like, all of Vanzig. So yeah, it's sort of like a battle between two large factions. The Vanzigordians and the Umbrellian Flanonians. You have Fumanito, and Miandu invading. To provide out, basically every country that is in the Terutsu makes an invasion. All of Agra is quickly taken, as well as all these areas, and Bengapuli. Ajasuni basically, they basically take over this area over here. As you can see, I'm just trying to like fast forward history right now. Yeah, Yunpria like manages to make a really good offensive here, basically encircling these Rasuni troops and, basically 20% of their army gets encircled and is captured, injured, or even killed. So yeah, after this, Ramianda surrenders, Waisalu basically gets forced into unconditional surrender, and yeah, Yunpria just gets everything. Like, you can see I'm just trying to fast forward this. Basically, the 3-point star line is dead, and yeah. Now, as you can see, Yunpria is completely alone. There isn't a single country, except for Perutsu, that is anywhere in the world. But we see new countries form basically out of nowhere. This country right here, called Segunt, just randomly shows up out of nowhere. And so does this country over here called Quagni, who, again, their borders aren't really that defined. You have this country down here popping up. Now, Yunpria is still doing really well, but then a meteor just crashes in their capital, Warvane. And instantly, the Vanzigs basically like work together to launch an anti-Yunperian rebellion. And yeah, basically take over all this area, border across all the Vanzig areas of Yunpria. And, Vanzig Guardian areas of Yunpria. Now, quickly, Yunpria will make a pushback, but again, capital got literally blown up by a meteorite. By a bloody meteorite. Basically, we have Quagni launching an invasion of Raccoon and all this area here. And we also have the Terutsu finally coming back here and just taking back what's theirs. Frontis does rebel. I'm just not showing that because I'm too lazy. These guys invade. People from Terutsu settle in what was previously Tinu, taking all of this land. See, basically a small country here rebel and take over Orvane and all of this land. Yeah, basically they claim, we're not Yunpria, we're our own thing. Then we have Vorticross rebelling again. I do not care what you say, they will never die. I will never allow for Vorticross to die. Yeah, basically Vorticross conquers a good chunk of all this land. Then some states in Pannonia basically just rebel and yeah, basically Yunpria is dead. So yeah. Let's take a look at what happens after this. Hey, okay, that took a long time. I had to draw in like fully new borders for everything. But yeah, basically I changed some names of some countries. As you can see here, Rasuni, Waizalu, Ramiandu, they're all back. Quadni is called Sialan now. Pirustu is here, Wari, they're basically the group itself from one from Tirus and sold here. So yeah, let me just explain everything. So yeah, in the Fleming Peninsula, Bordercross is back. Yunpria basically just got completely killed off, and their successor, quote unquote successor state is Hulan. This country basically gained some of these areas. These guys changed color. Cylon basically liberated Druin. Yes. Tirutsu let Bruntus go, and there's now a new country here called Quine. And yeah, basically, Vanzigard is sort of returned to how it was before, but not really. Rasuni, they do have most of their land back, but not all of it. As you can see now, we have two big countries are now here. Tirutsu and Bordercross. Tirutsu number 1 and Bordercross number 2 if you're wondering. And Wazada, Sunni, Miyagi, all these traditional states in Vanzigard, which, they used to be the strongest. They're basically like, hey, I want into the front too, man. What we see happening here is Waisalu, Rasuni, Ramiadu, Rasunu, and this northern guy, whose rival is called Munetome, unite to form the strongest nation on Sibor, Vanzigard. So, that's where I will be leaving this video, with 3 giant countries ready to probably battle it out in a war or something. Until then, goodbye.